Aloha, welcome, Ikomo Mai, to the Aloha Living in Hawaii show. So happy to have you join us here today. We've got two great contributors to the show this morning. Of course, my name is Carol Spierling. I am your host here. I am here on the Big Island, been here for quite a few years, very familiar with traveling around and getting to know places, because today our topic is transportation in Hawaii. We're going to talk about how to get around, what's the best options, how to get your car here if you're coming from the mainland, if potentially you want to only have walkable options or bus options. So right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Chelsea Fernandez. She is our associate on Maui. Welcome, Chelsea. Tell us a little bit about Maui and your life there.
So, hi everyone, Chelsea Fernandez from Maui, and I been living here for 20 years now, and there is a lot of modes of transportations available here for you today. So I'm glad to be able to talk to you about them today.
Awesome. Great, Chelsea. Thanks. And then Patrick, you're on Oahu, so there's even more options there.
Absolutely. So Patrick Chandler, I've actually been back on Oahu since 2016. I actually graduated high school here back in '89 and then moved away, military related. But love living here. Lots of different options when it comes to transportation, depending on what part of the island you're in, and looking forward to sharing all those with everybody.
That's great. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Chelsea. So we're going to kind of get started. And Patrick, I'm going to jump back to you real quick about Oahu, because that is the most populated island. It is the seat of our state. It is our main gathering place. And tell us about some of the options there that are available to folks when they come to visit or come to move.
Absolutely. So really, it's all going to depend on where you live. We have areas of the island that are very urban, very walkable. So if you don't want anything, you could absolutely do that. The parts that jump right to mind, of course, is Waikiki, that area of Honolulu, very walkable. Same thing with the areas around Ala Moana, part of Honolulu as well. So lots of very walkable neighborhoods. Same thing out in Pearl City, Aiea area, some very walkable neighborhoods around there. So if you want to be in those neighborhoods, no transportation necessary, but they do have a lot of rentable bike stations. So you can just go up, you can either have a monthly pass for those, you can rent them on an app, rent them by the hour, and just take a bike and go, put it back on another station when you're done. And that's an easy way to get around these walkable areas. For the rest of the island, of course, car is an option, depending on how much flexibility you need. But we do have an amazing public transportation system as well. The bus pretty much goes everywhere. So there's no place on the island that isn't touched by our bus system. And on top of that, we have a new high-speed rail system that is in progress of being built. And part of it is already open from Kapolei to the Aloha Stadium area of Pearl City. So from the west side of the island, coming in is how that's working. The goal is to eventually have it continue all the way to the airport, then past the airport into the Ala Moana area, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Waikiki. So you could even eventually fly into the airport and not even have to take an Uber to get into like the Waikiki area. You could take the train just right into Ala Moana. So that's the work in progress on that.
That's great. And that's good to know. And yeah, the rail system, it's been something that's been ongoing for a long time. And, where it's a work in progress. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the bike sharing, because I think Oahu and Honolulu is very bike friendly. There's a lot of bike lanes. And so, on some of the outer islands, like here on Big Island, not so much. But Oahu, I think they've done a lot of work on that.
They have. It's definitely come a long way. More work would be nice, but I mean, it is gotten much better than it was has been in the past. So they're definitely doing a much better job of creating that space for people on bicycles to get around safely.
That's awesome. And, so such good exercise, right? We live here in Hawaii. We love to exercise. We love to be outside. And it's also ecologically friendly because there's no emissions, there's no nothing. We're just getting good exercise. So that is another great perk. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate that. Chelsea, Maui, how is the transportation system there? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we also have a Maui bus system, and like it shows here on the slide, it's about $2 per rider. They do have some discounts for people who have a state ID that are older than 55. We have students. If you're younger than 24 and have your student ID, you can get a free ride that way as well. And there's also an application where you can get free rides. And actually, we have something called paratransit, where you can apply for the bus to actually come to your location and pick you up and bring you to your doctor's appointment or things like that. For, for those older, our senior people living on Maui, those services are available. And I believe the Maui bus system has expanded some of their services as well. So there is a new transit center that opened a couple of weeks ago in Kahului. And they have buses that go all the way up to Kula now, go out to Haiku, as well as out to Kapalua. So aside from Central Maui, Wailuku, Kahului, and Kihei area, they kind of reach a little bit more out to the more rural areas. So that's really nice to have on Maui. And let's see what else we can say about
that's great that they have the for the elder folks to pick up them at home. That is a great option because they rely on their children or grandchildren for rides and stuff. And if they can just be that little bit more independent, that they have something come and pick them up and take them, that's just an amazing way to take care of our kapuna.
Yes, for sure. And they do have the different kind of vans and things, or if you're in a wheelchair or if you're on a walker, you can walk right up into the vehicle. So that's super convenient. There's also 2 routes that come out of the Kahului airport. So if you're coming in and you're at the airport and don't have a mode of transportation to get where you need to, you can get on the Maui bus. So there is 2 routes that come out of the airport. So that's another cool thing about the Maui bus.
Well, that's super helpful because sometimes folks come and they have a convention or an event that they really don't need a car because they're only going to one place. If you're going to a resort or something. So you really don't need to rent a car because you're just going, you're going to stay for 3 days. And, wherever it is, you can walk around that area, but then get a bus ride back instead of spending $400 additional for a car that you don't necessarily need as a rental.
Exactly. And then those areas that are resort areas, Kihei Wailea, they're all walkable areas, kind of like how Honolulu is for Oahu. You've got shops, you've got restaurants, everything is right there in the vicinity where you can just walk.
And what about Uber and Lyft and that type of thing, Chelsea? You guys have that there? Is it effective?
Yeah, so we do have Uber and Lyft, and there are a lot of people that do that, local people that do that here. So that's definitely an option as well if you want to use that service.
Great. And Patrick, I would think on Oahu, Uber and Lyft are huge. I've used them when I go over there because I don't want to drive, and you just arrange. It's easy.
Absolutely. Uber, Lyft have a very strong footprint here on Oahu. You can get anywhere on the island from anywhere using their services.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you guys both. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about Big Island and transportation here on Big Island. We are the largest of all the Hawaiian Islands. You can actually take all the rest of the islands and put them into Big Island. It is so vast. We do have a bus service here on island. It's called the Heleon. And it has come a long ways. When I moved here back in 1988, the bus to get from Kona to Hilo would take about 5 hours because they stopped in every single little plantation town, no air conditioning, not a real comfortable ride. And now they're using Robert's Hawaii buses. So they're AC, they're very comfortable. And that service is island wide. And I, again, like Chelsea said, you can get a pass, or for different age levels, because a lot of kids that go to high school, say in Kona Waina, it's in Kealakekua, they live in Ocean View, which is an hour south. And so they're able to use the bus feature to get up to school and home from school a lot, because they don't have regular school bus services all the way down there. So they have the Heleon bus, which goes all the way around the island. There's many different routes. And then we also have our Kona Town trolley, which is kind of a hop on, hop off trolley that goes up and down Ali'i Drive and goes to the major shopping centers. It goes to Target and Walmart and that type of thing. So that's kind of a fun one to use when you're here. As far as the size of our island, if you want to get out of downtown Kona, downtown Hilo, a car is really an important thing, because it's just so vast. We just have so much to see, and there's just no way to do it on foot or even bicycles here on Big Island. It's okay to go bicycle. And we, of course, have the Ironman Triathlon here every year, which they bike out past the airport. It's relatively flat, but here in Kona, we're on a hill. So everything is up or down. So you have to be in very good shape to be able to ride a bike here. And it's not as bicycle friendly as, say, Oahu. We don't have as many bike lanes and that type of thing. So that one is kind of tough. Just get a car if you're here, so that way you can really get out and look around. The other islands I wanted just to kind of quickly mention was Kauai. There is a bus service there as well. And that covers the main towns, but it is a little bit limited in the more remote areas. And ride shares, taxis, like Big Island, we have them, but they're not as prevalent as, say, Oahu or even in Maui. They're there. It's just because, Kauai is much smaller and Big Island is so much bigger. So it's, you kind of have the two sides of that. Anyway, that's kind of what we've got as far as our transportation options here in the state. Molokai and Lanai, same thing as Kauai. It's pretty limited, so you'd want to get a car. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about owning a car. And we have lots of dealerships here in Hawaii. We have, all of the main dealerships, Honda, Toyota, Subaru, all of those. Patrick, I think on Oahu, you guys have some of the more elite. Can you tell us some of the, just in case somebody wants to come in and get a very specific type of vehicle, what you got going over there?
So absolutely. So all the major dealerships we have, but then we also have some of the luxury exotic brands as well. There's a Lamborghini dealership, there's a Bentley dealership. So all of those marquee name brands, we also have those available here as well. And probably the more important part is, if you have one of those type of vehicles, you can get it serviced. So I mean, even if you brought one from the mainland, I think your concern is, okay, now what? So I think it's important to note that we have those dealerships here, not just from a purchase standpoint, but just from getting those types of vehicles serviced.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be kind of tough and it's an option, say if we're on an outer island and we want to buy a Lamborghini, which is great. You can have it, you can go over for the weekend, test drive everything you want, and they'll arrange to ship it to your outer island. But then again, service. If it needs service, you need to ship it back to Oahu to have it serviced. So you have to just keep in mind all those little things that go with getting a luxury vehicle from Oahu and service and that type of thing. But otherwise, I mean, it's great. Chelsea, on Maui, do you guys have luxury vehicles as well, or is kind of the standards?
So we've got, of course, Toyota, Honda, Subaru, all of that. But the two luxury ones that I would consider would be BMW and Lexus. Those are two big ones that we have here.
Yeah, we have the BMW, and I'm not sure about Lexus here also, but those are kind of popular vehicles to have here, kind of as small SUVs. But again, I have a Subaru personally, and I can just go to Kona Quick Lube and I can get it serviced for, $50, $70. But I think BMWs, it's a whole different world to get these things serviced. So
for sure, I was looking to purchase one, and just to have a used one, and just to have it, diagnosed and see whatever all the stuff is, it would cost $250 just for them to look at it. So You can imagine if they were to service it.
Yes, that's what I've heard. So I'm going to stick with my Subaru personally. So just kind of talking about, the most car dependent islands, of course, Big Island, I kind of mentioned that to you guys as far as its vast size. And then, Maui, Chelsea, exploring, what's the road to Hana? You got to have.
Oh yeah, for sure. You need to have a car to get to Hana.
And to visit just to some of those other places. And Patrick, same kind of a thing. You mentioned Waikiki, downtown Honolulu, walkable, bicycle. But if you want to get out and you want to go, say, to North Shore and watch the waves.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to have your own vehicle for getting out to the North Shore or even to the west side of the island. Absolutely, a vehicle is a must.
Okay, that's good. And Kauai, same kind of thing. It is on the more rural side. So having a car to get out and actually go exploring is a good idea. And then, of course, the consideration of having a vehicle is, you live in a rural area versus downtown Honolulu where you can walk to Whole Foods and Costco. I live in a place where, I'm at the top of a hill, and if I'm going to go buy groceries, I'm not going to walk. I need a car and to go and do different things and just, explore and everything. And, and as Chelsea mentioned, getting folks to healthcare and school, having that flexibility of having your own car for those kinds of things is, I think, super important for, people to consider when you're moving here and thinking about getting to Hawaii. So the next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is shipping your car. You're coming to Hawaii. You want to move here. You've done a lot of research and you've been watching our show here, Living in Hawaii. And hopefully, everybody that's watching, you guys ever have any questions, please reach out. We're here for you. We're here to, guide you, give you any information. So between myself, Chelsea, Patrick, anyone here at our Ohana at Living in Hawaii, we are happy to give you more information about that. So just reach out anytime. But shipping a car to Hawaii is another thing that can happen if you own a vehicle already on the mainland and you want to ship it here. There's options from the West Coast, and then there's also companies that if you're inland that can take care of that also. We can fill you in a little bit more on those inland transportation companies, maybe at a later date, but just starting out coming from the West Coast. Patrick, talk to us a little bit about options coming from the West Coast.
Absolutely. And I actually have some significant personal recent-ish experience with this. So since I came back to the island in 2016, I shipped both of my vehicles recently. I used Matson, had a great experience with them. And I shipped one from the Tacoma port because we were actually living in Seattle at the time. And then we went to visit friends down in LA and we shipped the second one out of the Long Beach port before we flew over. So it's a relatively smooth, painless process. The companies that do this are very professional. They do it thousands of times a week. They know what they're doing. A couple of things to keep in mind that are kind of important is the car has to be completely empty. They base the weight of your vehicle that they're calculating for their ship based on an empty weight. And so, no, you don't get to ship all your stuff in your car. Sorry.
Now, that's a good tip because a lot of people want to, right? I mean, that's always something that's asked.
Yeah. And then the other thing is they only want you to have a quarter tank of gas in. And again, that goes back to safety. Like, what if there's a fire on the ship? Well, then they got to calculate all that fuel that's on board the ship because they ship hundreds of cars at one time. And these ships are specifically designed just to ship cars. It's not like your car is going on a ship with a bunch of containers. It's just cars on these ships. It's very cool the way they've got these setups. So again, from a safety perspective, definitely they're going to want you to have minimum fuel in your vehicle, and they will turn you away if you have too much fuel in your vehicle. So just a heads up on that.
Go drive around for a half an hour and burn it off and then come back.
Exactly.
Great. And then as far as ownership, we got to have proof of registration and your insurance and all your photo ID and everything. And that's great that you mentioned the different ports because Tacoma is easy if you're in the Northwest, or, there's also Oakland port, and then Los Angeles, there's that port as well. And then, just depending, and again, I mentioned, there are carriers from inland destination or inland origins that can ship, and it just depends on where it's going to. I recently purchased a truck out of Idaho, and they had it hauled to Tacoma. So it's all in, where it's coming from and the area that it's going to go out. So when they come in, now we have 3 different choices. We have Matson, we have Pasha, and we have South Brothers. Matson and Pasha, I think, are the 2 most popular and easy to work with for sure. And then it depends on what port they're coming into. So Chelsea, what happens to the vehicles when they're heading over, and how do they get to each individual island?
So usually they go to Oahu first, I believe, and then they go to different ports. So the Big Island has one on the west side and one on the east side. On Maui, we just have one in Kahului. And then Oahu has the Oahu ports, and then Kauai, I'm sure, has one as well. But when it comes in, you go to pick up your vehicle at the port. And so this past February, we had a huge truck come over from the mainland, and they have a huge staging area where they have all the vehicles. So it's nice to see how they take care of your vehicle, and how how they drive off the vehicles off the ship. I was able to see all of those things. So they do take care of your vehicle when it's being shipped over, and then when they're taking it off the port. So that's a good thing. And then also, when you're shipping your car here, I think sometimes it is a better and cheaper option for you to ship your car instead of buying a car here, because when you purchase a car here in Hawaii, there are additional fees and taxes that are tacked on. And a lot of local people that I know, they'll actually go to California to buy, the bigger trucks, because of the different tax rates and the price difference that you'll get purchasing in California. And then even including a shipping price to come to Hawaii, it's cheaper than buying one at the dealership here.
100%, Chelsea, because I just recently purchased a truck from Dave Smith in Idaho, and Idaho has no sales tax. So there's that. And then they arranged to get the shipping to the West Coast, and then getting it here. And then I went and priced, Dodge 2500s at our local dealership, and they were like $90,000, and I got this for like 50. So huge difference if you buy it on the mainland and then ship it over. And it's just something to really research as you're considering coming over and shipping your car and everything. And just having that experience, Chelsea, is great as far as being able to see them unloading.
Right.
Seeing the care that they take, because they know this is the business, this is how they do it. And I think that that's really, really important that they do that. And another option too, if you're coming from an inland destination, there are moving companies that will actually put your car in a container, and then they'll ship it in the container with some of your household goods. Of course, the car can't be that big. It's got to be, smaller so it fits in a container. But that is also something to research if, you're coming, say, from the East Coast and you have a smaller vehicle. You may be able to work with a moving company that offers that service.
And I can speak to that, Carol. I had a motorcycle that I shipped, and I was able to put it in the container.
That is great information, because then that motorcycle, and I don't know what kind, but normally motorcycle guys are like Harley Davidsons, or, something that needs to be bubble wrapped and treated with care. And they're just, they're all about their motorcycles.
Absolutely. But yeah, 100%. But again, the same restrictions apply. You got when you put it in a container, they want no fuel in it at all. So just a heads up on that. So when I put my motorcycle in, we had to drain the tank completely dry before they would ship that in the container.
Wow.
So a little bit different rules apply to that. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do that with a vehicle from the gas tank perspective, but they're probably going to have you have even less gas than if you were shipping it with one of the providers. And one thing I wanted to add, going back to your point, Carol, about buying vehicles from the mainland, the other thing here with us living here on an island, we have a lot less variety to choose from, especially in used vehicles. So there's a lot of less inventory to pick from. So if you're looking to have a broader selection, you're definitely going to want to shop on the mainland and ship it in. The only time you're going to get what you want otherwise, if you're buying a new vehicle and you're ordering it custom, well, then yeah, we can get anything because you just go to the dealerships and they'll just bring it in direct from the factory. But for used vehicles, you're definitely going to have a lot more options buying something from the mainland and then just shipping it over.
Right. Well, thanks, Patrick, on that, because it's very true. Because, like I said, I wanted a big truck because I have horses and I have a trailer. So I needed a 2500. And so just finding that as a used vehicle compared to trying to find one here. But as far as my work car, my Subaru, I just went to the dealership. I bought it new because it's a tool. It kind of depends on what you do for a living and how much you're in your car. Because if you don't need anything special, you can just go and get what you want. That'll do, because it's, your car is your office in a lot of careers here. So that's that. Well, you guys, this has been really great. Good information. Just kind of going over and recapping our public transportation. We have it here. There's lots of options on all the different islands, but a lot of times car ownership is necessary. So please reach out to us here at the Living in Hawaii show. We can always give you more information. We can help you with links and websites to different shipping companies, and we're here for you. So Living in Hawaii, Chelsea, Patrick, thank you so much for this, and we will look forward to seeing everybody again next time. Aloha.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Aloha.